In the summer of 2004, the Laramie family, mother Ellen, father Greg, and their daughters 16-year-old Emma and 12-year-old Lily, arrived at Seacliff, a sun-soaked beach town nestled along California's rugged coastline. It was supposed to be a vacation of laughter and reconnection, a chance to create lasting memories before the school year began. The family had rented a cozy beach house painted in cheerful yellow, just steps from the rolling surf and golden sands that stretched as far as the eye could see. Emma, with her auburn hair and infectious laugh, had always been the protective older sister. Lily, blonde and spirited, looked up to Emma with the kind of admiration only a younger sibling could possess. Together, they were inseparable, spending their days building elaborate sandcastles complete with moats and towers, collecting an assortment of colorful seashells, and chasing flocks of seagulls along the water's edge. Their laughter mingled with the rhythmic crashing of waves as they played in what seemed like paradise. Local residents would later remember seeing the two girls almost every day, their joy evident as they explored tide pools, searched for sea glass, and created intricate sand sculptures that would be washed away by the next high tide, only to be rebuilt the following morning with even more creativity and enthusiasm. On August 17th, the last day anyone would see them alive, Emma and Lily had spent the afternoon near the shoreline as usual. Ellen recalled Emma meticulously collecting seashells for a project she wanted to create back home, while Lily chased a group of small crabs scuttling across the wet sand, giggling as they disappeared into their holes. Around 5 p.m., with the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon, the girls promised their parents they would return to the beach house for dinner in just a few minutes. But when twilight painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, and the dinner table sat empty, worry began to creep into Greg and Ellen's hearts. They called out for their daughters along the beach, their voices carrying on the ocean breeze, but only the sound of waves answered back. What Greg and Ellen didn't know was that someone had been watching their daughters all week, studying their routines, learning their habits, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The next morning, Greg discovered the girls' belongings scattered near the tide line. Emma's favorite sun hat with its wide brim and floral pattern, Lily's bright pink sandals with the cartoon characters she loved, and their colorful beach towel featuring dolphins jumping through waves. The items lay abandoned on the sand, as if the girls had simply evaporated into the salt air. There were no signs of struggle, no unusual footprints leading away from the scene, no disturbances in the sand beyond the natural patterns left by the receding tide. The lack of evidence was perhaps the most disturbing aspect of all. It suggested either incredible planning or something far more sinister than a random crime. The local police, led by Sheriff Tom Briggs, launched an immediate and comprehensive search operation. They interviewed dozens of locals, combed every inch of the coastline with search dogs, deployed helicopters to scan the rugged cliffs and hidden coves, and followed every possible lead no matter how remote. Beach patrol officers on ATVs covered miles of shoreline, while divers explored the waters offshore despite the dangerous currents. But despite their exhaustive efforts, no trace of Emma or Lily was ever found. No witnesses came forward with credible sightings. No evidence emerged to point toward any particular suspect or scenario. The investigation, which had begun with such hope and determination, gradually lost momentum as weeks turned into months without a single breakthrough. The case grew cold as media attention shifted to other stories and the headlines faded from local newspapers. The Laramie family, unable to endure the constant reminders and painful memories that seemed to lurk around every corner of Seacliff, eventually made the heartbreaking decision to leave the town that had stolen their daughters. They moved across the country, but the questions followed them like shadows, never quite letting them find peace. For 20 long years, the mystery of Emma and Lily Laramie remained buried beneath the shifting sands of time, becoming local legend whispered about in hushed tones by longtime residents who remembered that tragic summer. But some secrets refused to stay buried forever. In the summer of 2024, exactly 2 decades after the girls' disappearance, a powerful storm system swept through Seacliff with unprecedented fury. The tempest reshaped the coastline, eroding familiar dunes and revealing layers of sand that hadn't seen daylight in years. As the storm clouds cleared and the first morning light painted the beach in golden hues, The transformed landscape held secrets that were finally ready to surface. Henry Miles, a weathered local beachcomber known throughout Seacliff for his early morning walks and keen eye for interesting oddities washed up by the tide, noticed something unusual glimmering beneath the newly shifted sand. Henry had been walking these shores for over 40 years, collecting sea glass, unusual shells, and the occasional piece of driftwood shaped by years of ocean tumbling. But this morning was different. As Henry approached the metallic glint near the waterline, in almost the exact spot where Emma and Lily had last been seen playing, his experienced eyes immediately recognized that this was no ordinary piece of ocean debris. His hands trembled as he carefully brushed away the coarse sand, grain by grain, revealing a delicate silver locket. Despite being tarnished by decades of salt and time, the jewelry's intricate craftsmanship was still evident. Engraved on its surface in elegant script were the initials YL and LM, Emma Laramie and Lily Morrow, their mother's maiden name. Henry's heart raced as he realized the significance of his discovery, but when he carefully opened the locket with fingers made clumsy by anticipation and dread, his blood ran cold. Inside, etched in letters so faint they were barely visible but unmistakably deliberate, was a date that would change everything. August 19th, 2007. 3 years after the girls had disappeared. The implications hit Henry like a physical blow. Someone had been keeping this locket. Someone who knew exactly where the sisters had vanished. Someone who had possessed this intimate piece of their lives for years after the official search had ended. And most disturbing of all, someone who had placed it in the sand deliberately, as if they wanted it to be found. Word of the locket's discovery spread through Seacliff like wildfire, reigniting old fears and painful memories that many residents had tried to forget. The local police immediately contacted federal authorities, and within hours, the FBI had taken jurisdiction over what was now being treated as an active investigation rather than a cold case. Agent Marcus Reed, a veteran investigator with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, was assigned to lead the reopened case. Marcus had built his reputation on solving seemingly impossible cold cases, approaching each investigation with methodical precision and an almost supernatural ability to see patterns that others missed. But as he flew to California and reviewed the sparse case files during the flight, something about this particular mystery felt different, more personal, more deliberately orchestrated. Marcus's first stop was the Seacliff Police Department, where he requested access to all original case materials. What he found troubled him deeply. The investigation files contained troubling inconsistencies that suggested either gross incompetence or something far more sinister, deliberate sabotage. Witness statements didn't align with each other in ways that couldn't be explained by simple memory lapses. Evidence logs had mysterious gaps where items should have been cataloged but weren't. Several key interviews appeared to have been conducted superficially, with obvious follow-up questions left unasked. Most concerning of all, some crucial pieces of physical evidence had simply disappeared from the police storage facility over the years, with no documentation explaining their absence. When Marcus ran Thomas Carver's recent address, his blood ran cold. The man was staying in a rental cabin less than half a mile from where the locket had been found. Marcus began systematically re-interviewing witnesses from 2004, starting with those whose original statements had contained the most inconsistencies. His first major breakthrough came with Carson Doyle, a former beach maintenance worker whose testimony had changed multiple times during the original investigation, raising red flags that had somehow been ignored or dismissed. Under Marcus's patient but persistent questioning, Carson's carefully constructed facade finally began to crumble. The man's hands shook as he lit his fourth cigarette in 20 minutes, his eyes darting nervously around the small interview room, as if expecting someone to burst through the door at any moment. "Your statements have changed multiple times," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conducted thousands of interrogations. "What are you hiding, Carson?" For several minutes, Carson remained silent, the only sound in the room the nervous tapping of his fingers against the metal table. Then, as if a dam had finally burst, the words came flooding out. "Carson," Marcus pressed gently but firmly, "I know about the van you saw. I know about the man loading something. But there's more, isn't there?" Carson's composure completely shattered. "God help me, yes," he whispered, tears streaming down his weathered face. I saw the girls in that van. They were unconscious, and he was so calm about it, like he'd done it 100 times before. Carson described a dark blue van, older model, with a distinctive dent in the passenger side that had caught his attention. The vehicle was driven by a tall, thin man who moved with the kind of practiced efficiency that suggested this wasn't his first time performing such a horrible task. But Carson had remained silent out of sheer terror, knowing instinctively that what he had witnessed was connected to something much larger and more dangerous than a simple kidnapping. But Agent Reed, Carson added, his voice shaking with 20 years of suppressed guilt and fear. Carver wasn't working alone. Someone in town was helping him, someone with power. That's why the investigation went nowhere. That's why I kept my mouth shut. This revelation opened an entirely new dimension to the case. Marcus realized he wasn't just investigating a missing persons case or even a simple abduction. He was uncovering a conspiracy that had operated in plain sight for decades, protected by corruption that reached into the very institutions meant to serve and protect the community. As Marcus prepared to leave Frank's house, the retired detective grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "Reed, there's something I never put in the reports. The day after the girls disappeared, I found a briefcase full of cash in my car. No note, no explanation. I turned it in, but my captain said there was no record of it. That's when I knew this case was bigger than missing children." Following Carson's lead and armed with new determination, Marcus organized a comprehensive search of the hidden coves and caves along Seacliff's northern coastline. These areas, accessible only by treacherous cliff paths and largely ignored during the original investigation, held secrets that would haunt the investigation team forever. In a secluded cove shielded from the ocean by towering cliffs and dense vegetation, Marcus's team made discoveries that painted a horrifying picture of what Emma and Lily had endured. Inside a natural cave formation that had been modified into a crude but effective shelter, they found evidence of prolonged human habitation that could only have been created by someone held against their will. Makeshift bedding constructed from weathered blankets and salvaged materials suggested someone had lived in the cave for an extended period. A battered water bottle bore traces of electrolyte solution, indicating that whoever had stayed there was attempting to maintain their health despite harsh conditions. Children's clothing fragments, faded and torn, hung from makeshift lines as if someone had tried desperately to maintain some semblance of normalcy in their makeshift prison. But it was the messages carved into the stone walls that truly revealed the horror of what had occurred in this hidden place. "Help us," read one desperate plea etched deep into the rock face. Another simply said, Day 127, part of what appeared to be a calendar system tracking the passage of time in captivity. Most chilling of all were the fresh carvings that made Marcus's blood freeze in his veins. "He's watching," and "Mr. Knows," his own initials carved in letters that couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Someone was monitoring his investigation, someone who had intimate knowledge of this place and continued access to it even after all these years. The team also discovered a water-damaged notebook, its pages warped and stained but still partially legible. The childish handwriting scattered across its pages told a story of courage and desperation that brought seasoned investigators to tears. The entries documented days in captivity, failed escape attempts, and the growing despair of two young girls who never stopped hoping someone would find them. Day 89. Still no one comes. We tried to signal the boats, but they can't see us from here. Day 103. Emma made up a new story today about princesses who save themselves. She always knows how to make me feel better. Day 127. Still no one comes. Emma is getting weaker. We tried to escape again, but he found us. He says we're going on a boat trip soon. Both girls had contributed to the notebook, their distinct handwriting styles revealing their individual personalities even in the depths of their ordeal. Emma's entries often focused on keeping Lily's spirits up and planning escape attempts, while Lily's writing reflected both her fear and her absolute trust in her older sister's protection. The final entry, barely legible and dated several months after their disappearance, was written in Emma's hand and contained words that would haunt Marcus for the rest of his career. "Emma is gone. The captain took her on the boat and never brought her back. I'm next. If someone finds this, please tell our mother we tried to come home." But the investigation was being watched by hostile eyes. That night, Someone broke into Marcus's temporary field office, rifling through files and leaving behind a simple but chilling message scrawled across his desk: "Stop digging." The break-in was professional. No fingerprints, no security camera footage, no trace evidence left behind. It was a clear warning from someone with both resources and motivation to keep the truth buried. Marcus's investigation intensified as evidence mounted that the sisters had been held captive by a sophisticated criminal network that had used Seacliff's isolated geography to operate with impunity for decades. The network wasn't just local. It had connections reaching into multiple states and possibly international territories, making it far more dangerous than anyone had initially imagined. A crucial breakthrough came when Marcus gained the cooperation of Daniel Price, a former enforcer within the criminal organization who had been arrested on unrelated charges in another state. Facing a lengthy prison sentence and haunted by years of guilt, Daniel agreed to testify in exchange for protection and a reduced sentence. Daniel's testimony revealed the horrifying scope of the operation and provided the first clear picture of the network's leadership structure. At its center was a figure known only as the Captain, a mastermind who had spent decades building and refining a human trafficking operation that spanned the entire West Coast. His real name is Dr. Michael Harrison, Daniel explained during a protected interview conducted in a secure federal facility. He was a child psychologist before he turned to this. Used his professional position to identify vulnerable targets, study their psychological profiles, and develop techniques for controlling them. He's been operating various versions of this network for over 30 years, and he's incredibly intelligent about covering his tracks. Daniel also revealed the existence of a mole within the local community, someone codenamed Lighthouse, who had been feeding information to the Captain for over 20 years. This insider had systematically sabotaged investigations, misdirected searches, and protected the network from exposure by law enforcement. Agent Reed, Daniel continued, his voice heavy with remorse and fear. You stirred up a hornet's nest when you started asking about those Laramie girls. The Captain had been lying low for years, content to live off his investments and let his subordinates handle operations. But your investigation brought back too many memories, too many risks. Now he's active again, and that means more children are in danger. The investigation revealed that Emma and Lily had been caught in the network's expansion phase. They had been taken to the hidden caves and held captive while the Captain decided their ultimate fate. According to Daniel's testimony, the sisters had shown remarkable courage throughout their ordeal, protecting each other and even helping other captive children when opportunities arose. Most heartbreaking was Daniel's account of the girls' final days. The Captain kept detailed records of all his victims, Daniel revealed. Emma and Lily were special to him because they refused to be broken. Even after months of captivity, they kept fighting, kept trying to escape, kept protecting each other. It infuriated him because his usual psychological techniques weren't working. Marcus's team discovered video footage that proved Emma and Lily had survived in captivity far longer than anyone had imagined, until at least 2008, possibly later. The grainy recordings, found hidden in a waterproof container within the cave system, showed Emma creating elaborate games and stories to keep Lily's spirits up even in their darkest moments. In one particularly poignant clip, Emma could be seen teaching Lily a complex clapping game, their laughter echoing off the cave walls despite their dire circumstances. In another, Emma was telling her sister an intricate fairy tale about brave princesses who saved not only themselves but other children trapped by an evil sorcerer. Their bravery helped other children escape, Daniel testified. Emma would create distractions during transport, allowing younger kids to run. Lily would share food and comfort the newest arrivals. Even in hell, they never lost their compassion. The investigation climaxed when Marcus identified Richard Monterey, a wealthy city council member and prominent local businessman, as Lighthouse. Monterey had used his political influence and social connections to limit the original investigation, ensuring that crucial leads were never followed and key evidence mysteriously disappeared. Marcus set a trap, feeding different pieces of false information to various suspects, and waiting to see which details reached the Captain. When the false intelligence he had shared exclusively with Monterey appeared in intercepted communications, the mole was exposed. On November 10, 2024, coordinated federal raids struck multiple locations simultaneously across 3 states. The operation involved over 200 law enforcement officers from various agencies, all working in perfect synchronization to prevent any members of the network from escaping or destroying evidence. The captain himself was captured at a secluded marina while attempting to board a boat rigged with explosives. His escape plan doubled as a weapon designed to eliminate evidence and potential witnesses. When agents apprehended him, Dr. Michael Harrison showed no emotion, treating his arrest as merely an inconvenience rather than the end of decades of horrific crimes. The raids uncovered the network's true scope, which was far more extensive than anyone had imagined. Dozens of victims across multiple states, detailed records of trafficking operations spanning decades, maps of safe houses and transport routes, and evidence of corruption reaching into law enforcement agencies, political offices, and social service organizations. Dr. Harrison's personal effects included meticulously kept journals documenting his crimes, psychological profiles of his victims, and detailed plans for future operations. The journals revealed the calculated nature of his predatory behavior and his complete lack of empathy for the children whose lives he had destroyed. But perhaps the most significant outcome of the raids was the rescue of 7 other children from affiliated operations across the country. These children, ranging in age from 8 to 16, had been held in various locations within the network, some for months, others for years. Emma and Lily's story had become the key that unlocked justice for families who had long given up hope of ever seeing their children again. During his initial interrogation, Dr. Harrison showed no remorse whatsoever, viewing his victims as commodities rather than human beings. His psychological evaluation revealed a methodical predator who had spent decades perfecting his techniques while maintaining a respectable public facade as a children's advocate and mental health professional. He compartmentalized everything, the FBI psychologist explained to Marcus. In his mind, his professional work helping children and his criminal activities existed in completely separate worlds. He genuinely believed he was providing a service to his clients while simultaneously destroying the lives of countless children. The community of Seacliff struggled to process the revelations that emerged from the investigation. The peaceful town they thought they knew had harbored one of the most sophisticated trafficking networks on the West Coast. Neighbors discovered that people they had trusted and respected for years had been complicit in unimaginable horrors. Yet amidst the horror and betrayal, there was also a profound sense of justice finally being served. The truth, no matter how painful, was preferable to the uncertainty and fear that had haunted the community for 20 years. Ellen Laramie, who had never left Seacliff despite the painful memories that seemed to lurk around every corner, met with Marcus as the investigation concluded. Through tears of grief mixed with pride, she expressed gratitude not just for uncovering the truth, but for revealing the extraordinary courage her daughters had shown in their final months. "Agent Reed," she said, her voice trembling with emotion but carrying an underlying strength that had sustained her through 2 decades of uncertainty. "My girls fought until the end. That's what I'll remember. Not how they died, but how they lived and how they tried to survive. They saved other children, even when they couldn't save themselves." Ellen had received a letter during the investigation, postmarked from Seacliff with no return address. It simply read, "Your daughters were brave until the end. Don't let their courage be forgotten." Now she understood that it had been a message from someone within the network, someone who had witnessed Emma and Lily's heroism and wanted their mother to know. At a memorial service held on the beach where everything began, hundreds of people gathered to honor Emma and Lily's memory. The ceremony transformed from a moment of grief into a celebration of courage, resilience, and the power of love to triumph over evil. Ellen announced the creation of the Emma and Lily Foundation, dedicated to supporting trafficking survivors and funding prevention programs. "My daughters' voices will never be silenced," she declared to the assembled crowd, her words carrying across the water where Emma and Lily had once played. "Their story will protect others, and their courage will inspire us to never stop fighting for justice." One of the rescued children, now safely reunited with her family, shared her own testimony about the sisters who had helped save her life. "Emma told me stories when I was scared and the nights seemed too long. She said that someone would come for us, and we just had to be brave a little longer. She was right. And even when she was gone, I could still hear her voice telling me to be strong. The memorial plaque installed at the site reads, Emma and Lily Laramie, sisters, heroes, guardians of hope. Their courage in darkness became light for others. May their bravery inspire us to protect the innocent and never stop fighting for justice. As the investigation officially closed, Marcus reflected on the extraordinary journey from the discovery of a tarnished locket to the dismantling of a criminal empire that had operated in the shadows for decades. The case had demanded every ounce of his professional skill and personal resolve, pushing him into the darkest corners of human nature while simultaneously revealing the extraordinary power of courage and compassion. The network's exposure led to significant policy changes in how missing children cases are investigated, ensuring that future investigations would be more thorough, better coordinated between agencies, and less susceptible to local interference or corruption. Emma and Lily's legacy extended far beyond their own tragic story, creating a framework designed to protect countless other children from similar fates. 20 years after their disappearance, Emma and Lily Laramie's story had finally ended not in tragedy, but in triumph. It proved that even when all hope seems lost, even when corruption seems insurmountable, the truth has a way of surfacing. And sometimes, that truth can still save lives, still bring justice, and still honor the memory of those who refuse to surrender their humanity even in the face of unimaginable evil. Their story serves as a powerful reminder that the vulnerable among us deserve our protection, that silence in the face of evil is a form of complicity, and that the courage of two young sisters can illuminate even the deepest darkness and guide others toward justice and redemption. In the end, Emma and Lily had kept their promise to return home, not in the way their parents had desperately hoped and prayed for, but in a way that would protect other families from experiencing the same heartbreak. Their laughter may have been silenced, but their legacy continues to echo along the shores of Seacliff, a testament to the enduring power of love, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth in a world that too often prefers comfortable lies to difficult realities.